So this is the Bogdanfly Cocoon 2. I believe it's slightly customized for me. There's a seat, storage area underneath the seat here, which gives quite a lot of room. There's also a storage area in the back over here. So storage space wise, it's very similar to the Strike, which was the harness I had before. Weight wise, it's very similar as well. It's about 2 kilos with the back protection, and it has a full inflatable back protector that runs all the way around from underneath here to the back. It's a very comfortable harness. I've got very tight ITBs, so I've put a bit of foam here just to make it more comfortable for me, but see whether my Volbiv stuff will fit in it. And so this is the experiment. I've got a summer sleeping bag, 2 cans of Indian food, gas stove and coffee and a spoon and a cup. Ground mat. And a pair of socks. And then we've got storage in the front here as well, which makes it aerodynamic. So I've got a couple of shirts in here. Towel, boxer shorts, water filter. So this is my Supair Trek Light backpack with a 3-litre water bladder in it, which is what I normally fly with, and it gives me sufficient water. And this is an MSR one-man tent. So that's my summer Volbiv kit. I wear my jacket and my gloves when I'm flying. One of those 2 shirts you saw there was a thermal shirt. So I've got clean socks, clean underwear, and a clean tech shirt for the following day's adventure. And then I also have a thermal shirt as an underlayer for sleeping in case it gets cold overnight. And that's basically it. Because I've got a water filter, I can generally survive with 3 litres of water. I try and be fully hydrated when I take off. And 3 litres is enough for me to do an overnight and have some coffee and drink, and then fly out of the following day. But I've got the water filter because I'm expecting to be able to find water and refill my bladder if I'm there for any longer. So the Cocoon, compared to the Strike is a super weight shifty harness because of the seat board. If you take the seat board out, it's still a very weight shifty harness. So it's not like as weight shifty as it gets, but it's still right up there. So going from the Strike without a seat board to the Cocoon with the inflatable back protection, which is really what gives you the stiffness in the harness, it's just amazing. When you're flying in really horrible rough air and you're getting big asymmetric collapses and you're being thrown all over the sky, in the Strike with the seat board, it was like really full on, and I found I was working 110% to keep everything in control, and it was stressful. When I removed the seat board from the Strike, I felt like it was still pretty intense, but I felt more comfortable with the way that it was. Like with the seat board in with the Strike, when you're flying a high aspect ratio wing and you get a big collapse on one side, it tips you over 45 degrees before you have a chance to do much. And I don't like that feeling that I'm looking down at the ground and I'm being tipped out of my harness. When you remove the seat board, it reduces that to maybe 25 or 30 degrees, which is not such a big deal anymore. But it's still, tippy. But the Cocoon is just amazing. I'm flying the BGD Lynx 2 at the moment with this, and I've flown in some really horrible air and had big asymmetrics and stuff going on. And the harness pretty much, limits the tipping to maybe 20 degrees, 15, 20 degrees. Even when you lose one side of the wing, it feels very, very stable. So it's like you're lying on a comfortable couch and you're being supported, and the harness is keeping you in a nice, safe position the whole time. It doesn't feel like you're right out there. Now, part of me thinks, well, you're losing some feedback from the wing, and also with the strike. I mean, you could, without holding the brakes, you could do wing overs by weight shifting, basically just by moving weight from one side of your bum to the other, which is amazing. You can't do that with this wing, with this harness. This is one of those harnesses where you have to lean your weight over to the side of the carabiner to get the same degree of weight shift that you could get from the strike just by pushing down on one side of your bum. So you lose that, and that's a shame if you want a harness that is super controllable and responsive. But if you're flying a higher aspect ratio wing in big air, I really like the feeling of this harness. It feels just so much nicer. And I will say, when I was flying the Maestro, which was high B with a lower aspect ratio, I flew that with the seat board every single time I flew it, and I flew it in horrible air, and I had all kinds of things happen, and I never felt like the harness was too weight shifty or too tippy. But then when I stepped up to the Volt 4, I really felt like it was too much for me. And this is completely a personal thing. If you're a gun comp pilot and you're not going to be listening to me anyway. If you're coming from a high B and you fly mostly for fun, but you try to put in some good flights, maybe this is more relevant to you. And so in this case, I would say the Cocoon is a wonderful harness from a stability point of view. I really love it. I have the additional stability lines tensioned up a bit, so they reduce the amount that you drop when you get a depressurization on one side. But I don't have them extreme. Otherwise, about this harness, what can I say? Obviously, it has lots of storage room for a Volbiv adventure. You're not going for a 7-day or a 10-day, Himalayan Volbiv adventure with this harness. But if you're in the Alps and you want to go for a couple of days, it has all the room you need for carrying everything, and that's the level I'm at right now. So that's good for me. From a comfort point of view, for me, the Strike 1 was just a superbly comfortable harness. I never had any problems. I've flown over 7 hours in that harness, and I landed and felt like I'd been sleeping in a bed and I just got up. Like it was really wonderful. And with the Cocoon, it feels exactly the same way. I have very tight ITBs because I'm getting older and I don't do enough self-care and massage, and I climb hills and I run. And with the Cocoon, I found that exactly where the harness finishes was just behind my knee, where I have these tight ligaments and muscles, and it was digging in. It was uncomfortable. So I put a few grams of foam on there, and that made all the difference. And now the harness is not digging in, and it's very comfortable anymore. I think that's a geometry thing. If your legs were slightly longer or slightly shorter than mine, or if your ITBs and your hammies weren't really tight like mine, you wouldn't notice it. So I'm not saying that's something wrong with the harness. I'm just saying, like everything in life, you have to customize stuff to yourself personally. The harness has a very beautiful tail on it, which perhaps gives you half a point or a point of extra glide. I don't know. But it's always nice, I think, to have a tail. If other people have tails, you don't feel like you're missing out. Putting something in the storage pocket on the front of the harness is very important. With the Strike, it didn't matter because the Strike had a perforated material on the front. And so when you started flying, it would inflate itself and make a nice round shape. With the Cocoon, it's very important that you put something in there to give it the round shape. But that's also extra storage, so you can put your pack-up bag in there, or shirts, or whatever it is. And what I've found is having a bit of extra weight in the front of the the harness there actually makes it easier to get into the harness, because when you take off, it doesn't get blown behind you, it hangs down in front of you. So it's very important, if you're flying this harness for the first time, to remember to do that. It's important to remember to close all the zips on the back of the harness, because if you don't, then the tail won't inflate properly, but that's, goes without saying. The harness has so many adjustments, and it comes with a really comprehensive manual that explains exactly what everything does. So if you're the sort of person who reads the manual and hangs the harness up at home and spends an hour getting it set up correctly, you won't have any problems with this at all. If you don't read manuals and you don't know how to set up a harness, find someone who does, and they will make it perfect for you. It's super comfortable. The back protection on this is the biggest back protection I've ever had. It starts from halfway up your thighs and finishes at your upper back. So I don't ever want to have to use a back protection. I always land on my feet. But it's nice to know that it's there, and it does give the harness a feeling of stability, like you're sitting in in a couch or something, or a chair which is formed for your back. So that's very nice. The build quality of the harness is perfect. I couldn't imagine it being better made. I haven't found any fault with it anywhere. The adjustments are very intuitive, actually. The way that he's using self-tightening loops and cord that is threaded through itself to tighten is very simple and very stable and very reliable, and it hasn't slipped at all for me so far. A lot of the lines do look very small, but these are strong lines that are rated at a sufficient or high rating, so it looks lightweight compared to other harnesses, but the actual main structural parts of it are good, and he does even say in his manual it's okay for light acro, and with the strike it's said no acro, but many people have done SIVs and acro in the strike and nothing bad has happened. So yeah, I think it's a really beautiful, well-made harness. I think it will last quite a long time. You can get it in the heavier ripstop material, or you can get it in the lightweight sail type material, and I went for the lightweight because I like to reduce as much as I carry up the hill. My strike has 500 hours on it, and that's made from the lightweight material as well, and it's got no damage, no tears, nothing on it at all, because I've looked after it. I always land on my feet, I don't drag it around on the ground, and so I believe this harness will last for 500 hours of flying as well, which for me, I'm a 100 to 150 hour a year pilot, mostly XC. I think that's fantastic value for what you pay for one of these harnesses. The harness was custom made for my exact size, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to anybody. The service and the product is perfect.